just a minute and we're going to go ahead and get started. I'll kick it off and then we're going to go straight to Scott Anderson to give us an update from the Finance Committee. We'll get started in about 30 seconds.
Is it too dark where I am? Does it matter even?
I can see you just fine.
Okay, great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this town hall via Zoom. We're grateful for those of you who are participating. We're also grateful for those who will be presenting on the town hall. I'm Derek Miller. I'm the president and CEO of the Salt Lake Chamber and Downtown Alliance, and also chairing the Utah Economic Response Task Force. We're joined today by a number of presenters, including Scott Anderson, the president of Zions Bank, who will be giving us an update from the Task Force Finance Committee. We also have asked Miles Hansen to join us on this town hall again to give us an update on federal relief programs. We've had a number of questions that have come in via the rapid response team that Miles oversees, and so we thought this would be a good opportunity to answer some frequently asked questions about the SBA loans and others. We're also grateful to be joined today by Rob Behunin, who's the chair of the Salt Lake Chamber's Rural Outreach Committee, who's going to make a nice announcement with regards to some assistance going to rural companies. Jacey Skinner, also on the team at the Salt Lake Chamber, our general counsel and vice president of public policy, is here with us and will be talking about some industry outreach that's happening. And then at the end of the program, we're delighted to hear from some owners and business operators and leaders of businesses who've been impacted by the COVID-19 virus, to hear about what they're doing to adapt, to innovate, and to overcome. I want to give a welcome on behalf of Governor Herbert, who is not able to join us for this afternoon's town hall. I just left a meeting with the governor and he asked me to send his regrets. The good news is that although he cannot be with us, the reason that he's not with us is because he's actually having a governor's cabinet meeting right now, where he's meeting with his cabinet to talk about the update to the Utah Leads Together plan. That's version 2.0, specifically talking about that plan and the elements that have been updated with regards to moving out of the urgent phase, which we are currently in, moving into the stabilization phase, and most notably being able to reactivate elements of our economy. Stay tuned for more information about that. I think if our timeline holds true, you'll hear the governor make an important announcement about that tomorrow. I don't want to scoop his announcement, but I mention it now just so that you all know to participate in Thursday's town hall, where we will be giving some details about how we're going to go about reactivating elements of our economy. An important aspect of that is the financial relief that's been provided by the U.S. Congress. And so we've asked Scott Anderson, who, as I mentioned, is the president of Zions Bank, who is also leading the Finance Committee for the Economic Task Force, to give an update on how those PPP loans are going. Scott, thanks for joining us. And if you can hear me, go right ahead.
Great. Well, thanks. It's nice to join you. And let me say that despite a choppy start to the SBA Paycheck Protection Program over the last several weeks, we are now seeing funds being distributed to businesses at scale. As more and more lenders have gone online, the amount of small businesses that have been able to get their money is growing dramatically, and that's what it's really all about. And then as of last Friday, applications began to be accepted under the program for independent contractors and self-employed individuals. Banks of all sizes have been working around the clock to provide these loans and have processed over 1 million loan requests nationwide as of last night. There are now about 4,600 lenders participating in the program, up from 1,700 last week. So you can see how it's scaling. But banks and credit unions alike have a shared goal in this process: to get the funds out in the marketplace in the hands of businesses as quickly as possible. Now, let me give you some numbers as to what has funded. As of April 13th, yesterday, the gross dollar amount of loans committed under the program totaled $247.5 billion. In Utah, there have been 12,914 loans approved, totaling $2.6 billion. The average size of loan is about $239,000, though 70% of the loans approved have been for $150,000 or less, and only 9% of loans are greater than $5 million. So it's really a program that's helping the small business. It's interesting to note that the largest industry sector to receive funding under this program is the construction sector, which represents about 14% of total loans approved. The next is the professional, scientific, and technical services sector, which has about 12% of total loans approved. And that's followed by manufacturing with 12%, healthcare and social assistance with 11%, and accommodation and food services with 9%. These top five make up over 50% of the industry sectors that have received loans. It's interesting to note that 1.5% has gone to arts, entertainment, and recreation, and 1.2% to agriculture. We are encouraging Congress to increase the funding of the program from $350 billion to $600 billion. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has asked the Senate to approve this additional $250 billion by unanimous consent, so that every business who needs the cash will get it. The president supports this increase, and there's strong support for it in Congress. However, it has not passed the Senate, nor has the House acted on this proposal yet. And time is of the essence. So I would encourage everyone to contact members of Congress and ask them to act immediately so that more money is put into the Paycheck Protection Program to save more jobs and to offer a lifeline to more businesses. I would emphasize that long before the passage of the CARES Act with the PPP program, banks and credit unions have been working with their customers and clients on a host of things to help them, from waiving fees to doing payment deferrals on credits to extending loan maturities to mortgage forbearance and more. Banks and credit unions have been at this since the very early days of the crisis, working with their borrowers and their businesses because it's in everyone's interest to keep them up and running. I would also emphasize that the Payroll Protection Program is only one of the programs under the $2.2 trillion CARES package. There are many more programs that everyone should look at and take advantage of. One of the other programs, the economic impact payments to individuals, started to see checks being direct deposited into individual accounts last Friday. More will be coming this week and into the future. This program gives up to $1,200 per adult and $500 per child. And the IRS is putting up a portal that should be operational on April 17th called Get My Payment, where people can go in and check the status of their payment, if it's been sent or when it should be sent. But if you haven't signed up for direct deposit, I would encourage everyone to do so. You'll get your money faster and it'll be a lot safer. But if you do get a check, check around, because some banks and some credit unions will cash these government checks without any fees. Also last week, it's interesting to note that the Federal Reserve released their details of additional programs that they're doing that will provide up to another $2.3 trillion in loans to support the economy. One of these programs is its Mainstreet program for larger businesses, offering a 4-year loan of $1 million up to a maximum of $25 million. Another Fed program is designed to help state and local municipalities manage cash flows stress caused by the coronavirus pandemic. This municipal liquidity facility offers up to $500 billion in lending to states and municipalities. So people should take advantage of it. But in all of this, fraudsters are ramping up their efforts to scam people out of their economic impact checks or their PPP loan funds. Know that your bank or credit union will not send a text or email message to you asking for private information. And know that the SBA will not initiate contact with you about a disaster loan or some other loan that they provide. So if you have a question, call your bank, call your credit union. Watch for suspicious offers that are really too good to be true, because they probably are. Be on the alert. If someone says that for a fee, they can get you a loan faster or cash your check more quickly, be on the alert. It's likely a scammer, so be careful. And that's my report, Derek.
Thank you so much, Scott. I failed to mention in your introduction that you're also serving, I believe, as the incoming chair for the National Bankers Association. Is there anything that you can share with us from a national perspective that's happening with regards to these PPP loans? Does Utah seem to be on track for getting the number of loans that we ought to be getting? Are we experiencing any challenges that are unique in Utah? What perspective would you share with us?
Well, as I said, 247 billion have already been committed. Utah has 2.6 billion of that. Obviously, the larger amounts are going to the larger states. So Florida has about 52 billion that are outstanding. New York has 40 billion. Ohio has 38 billion. But some of the smaller states, like Vermont, has 4.8. Washington is 18. Wyoming has 5. So we're getting our fair share.
That's good to know. And some of our participants, either on Zoom or on Facebook Live today, have some specific questions with regards to their own business. So I want to take this opportunity to remind everyone who's participating and to remind your colleagues and other business owners, so you know that there is a rapid response task force that has been set up as part of this economic task force. You can contact them, ask those specific questions that you have about your own business. But we've also invited Miles Hansen, who's leading that rapid response team, to come on and talk about some frequently asked questions. So thank you again, Scott, for joining us. Thank you for all your work with our finance committee. And Miles, we'll go to you.
Great. Thank you, Derek. And thank you, Scott, for that overview, for everything that Zions is doing. Like Derek mentioned, we've been working with the rapid response team just in the past week and a half or so that the team has been up and running. We've helped more than 1,400 Utah businesses get through this process. And of course, the rapid response team, we can't accept applications or process them, but it's the banks that do that. And Zions Bank has been a phenomenal partner to us and to Utah small businesses as we've gone through this process. And Derek, just real quick at the top, to the question as to whether or not Utah is getting our share of the PPP program, it's interesting to note that before the PPP program was launched, the U.S. Chamber went and calculated how much each state would be eligible for if every small business in that state participated in the program. At that point, their estimate was that Utah small businesses in aggregate would be able to access $3.1 billion of the $349 billion as part of the program. Like Scott mentioned, to date, Utah small businesses have received $2.6 billion, which tells you that we're doing pretty good. We have $500 million more until we got to the point where the U.S. Chamber estimated we'd be with 100% utilization. And so many Utah businesses are benefiting from the program. And that's good news for our economy. I'll share a couple success stories here at the end. Real quick, a couple of updates based off of questions that we're receiving, both with PPP, but also the other elements of the CARES Act. that I thought would be worth re-emphasizing today. One is many companies are aware of, but have not yet acted on, the tax benefits that are part of the CARES Act. There's been a focus for good reason on PPP, on the economic injury disaster loans, but there are things that companies can do right now that can help inject additional cash into their businesses and also save them cash when they go to do second quarter tax filings and payroll tax. So very briefly, a few things that could relate to Utah businesses. One, there were changes as part of the CARES Act, there were changes in net operating loss limitations. If you remember in the 2017 tax reform, there was some tightening up on how far back companies could carry losses. As part of the CARES Act, those restrictions were eased. And so companies can go look into this, and it's technical, so we won't go into the details right now, but check at your 2018, your 2019 tax returns. Look at these changes on net operating loss limitations. And if it would benefit your business, if there's more losses that you could have carried forward that would have reduced your tax burden in 2018 and 2019, you can go ahead and amend your tax return now. And as quickly as the IRS can process that, you will get some additional refund back to your business. The same is true for qualified improvements. So for anybody who's made improvements to real estate or facilities that you have since January 1st, 2018, there's an opportunity to go back and to write off the entire cost as depreciation of those improvements. Again, you can amend your 2018, 2019 taxes, get cash back from the IRS. The third tax element that I just wanted to highlight briefly is a deferral in payroll tax. So the 6.2% on payroll that companies are paying for Social Security for their employees, you can defer that when you file your second quarter tax filings. You can defer those payments to 2021 and 2022. You have to pay 50% in both years. Right now, it is a deferral, so you will have to pay that. But if you're focused on making payroll, paying rent, keeping the company going, this is an opportunity that Utah businesses are not yet fully taking advantage of that can be very beneficial for them. The last thing I will note is part of right before the CARES Act, a law was passed that made it mandatory for companies to provide paid sick leave for their employees. So that's something that all businesses in the state are dealing with. You have to pay for that paid sick leave, but you can get a tax credit and apply that to your payroll tax for whatever you're paying. So as you look across your companies, if you are paying sick leave as a result of COVID-19, work with your tax people, with your accountants, because you can take what you're paying there, apply that as a credit to your payroll taxes, and further reduce your tax burden moving forward. And so again, these are all issues that they're complicated, they're nuanced, but if you have any questions at all, please go to coronavirus.utah.gov/business. There you can request assistance from the rapid response team. They'll dig into these issues and help get you information that then will help frame the conversations that you'll have with your CPAs and your accountants or CFOs or people you're working with. Now moving back to some of the common questions that we see coming in with the rapid response team, specifically looking at the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. For one, Scott mentioned that as of last Friday, independent contractors and sole proprietors can apply for a PPP loan. These are the smallest of businesses here in Utah, often the ones who have the least experience working with lenders. You know, a lot of them, their lenders, their credit card, and they use their personal checking account to fund the business. There have been a lot of questions about how do they calculate payroll. Of course, at this point, most people who've been on these town halls are familiar that you can get a PPP loan up to 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. If you're a freelancer or if you're you own your own business or you're doing contract work, you don't have payroll. So how do you calculate that to determine how much you are eligible for? The answer is you look at your net profit. And so you look at your your average monthly net profit over the past year, and that is what you're eligible to receive through a PPP loan, 2.5 times that average monthly net profit. You get that money, you can use that to pay yourself, which is what you do as an independent contractor, a sole proprietor. You can also use that to cover mortgage interest, rent, if you have rent, as well as utilities and there are a few other fixed costs, operational costs that you can use the funding for. And again, as long as you're using it for those requirements, including paying yourself, that portion of the loan will be forgiven as part of the program. And again, details on the website, or go to the rapid response team to get some assistance there. Another question that is very frequent, people come in asking what qualifies as a payroll cost. So this applies more to the small businesses than the sole proprietors, but payroll cost includes all cash and non-cash compensation. And so that means when you're calculating, it's not just what you're paying in salary, but how much are you spending on benefits for your employees. And the payroll cost includes all of those costs. And so again, you times that by 2.5 to come up with the amount you can get from your PPP. And this is really, really important. We've heard reports from several lenders who are going back to companies and saying, no, you can only receive up to 2.5 times the cash compensation. And what happens is if companies don't push back on that, then they may end up getting a PPP loan that's maybe 85% of what they're really eligible for. And you miss out on that 15%. So it's really important to understand these details and to dig into them. And so then when you're approaching your bank, you know exactly what you're eligible for, or your lender, you know what you're eligible for, and then you can make sure that you are receiving that through the program. We've been working with the Howard with the Utah Banking Association, Scott Simpson with the Utah Credit Union Association, both phenomenal lenders across the state working around the clock to process these programs. And we want to make sure that the bankers and lenders have the information they need to appropriately calculate payroll costs. And it's critical for businesses to know this as well. Another very common question is, what if I've already let people go? At this point, we're all familiar that to receive the forgiveness part of the loan, you need to maintain your payroll. And it's not all or nothing. You don't have to keep it at 100% and you get all your forgiveness. There's a scale there where even if you don't get your payroll back up to 100%, there's some cushion there where you can still receive forgiveness for everything you're spending on payroll. And then even if you get close, but you're below 75% of what your payroll was, you don't lose all of the forgiveness benefit right away. There is a scale that drops down as you reduce your payroll below that 75% threshold. You'll also see a reduction in what you're eligible for as a forgiveness. But for a lot of businesses, they'd love to be able to bring all their people back, but just for several reasons, it's not possible. And so that's very important to take a look. And again, the website and the rapid response team has more details on that as you're looking specifically at your business, what the best strategy is. But I will underscore that the purpose of the program is to keep people on payroll, even if you don't have business for them, because that keeps people in your organization ready to go. So when things open back up, as we reactivate the economy, you're ready to jump back in. And so we've gotten some input from businesses who say, yeah, but I can't keep all my people on payroll because we're only doing 35% of the business we used to be doing. And that's why the loan exists, and that's why they will forgive it, is because it'll be better for you as a business and better for our economy as a whole if you keep people on payroll, find things for them to do, use the PPP loan to cover those payroll costs. So when things open back up, you haven't lost your workforce. Just very briefly, a couple really great stories. And there are so many great stories we're getting from the rapid response team of, in their moment of need, this team of volunteers from 20 plus organizations are able to plug in and add a lot of value to our companies. And just very briefly, one, there's Utah's got an incredible robotics company. They do robotic, autonomous solutions, robotics for lots of different industries, mining, heavy industry, a lot of different areas, including distribution centers. And so they were able to get a PPP loan. That funding comes through. That helps them as they're dealing with a lot of the same challenges many other people are. And I love this story because of the PPP loan, they were able to keep their people on payroll. And now they're working very, very aggressively to adapt, innovate, and overcome so they can take advantage of an increased demand for the products and services that they have available to them. And these things take a long time to develop. And without the support of the PPP loan, it would be much more difficult for them to be thinking about revenue and growth and moving forward if they're just focusing on covering payroll. Another story came from a daycare owner. She owns 4 or 5 different daycares, was absolutely crushed that she's had to let people go. When she heard about the PPP, she didn't really know much about it. She reached out to the rapid response team, and the person on the team that was helping her, went through several different emails, phone calls to get her the information she needed. And at the end of the process, once she realized that she would be eligible, she knew exactly how to apply. She had her documents put together. She had her application submitted. She just was overwhelmed because she was looking at figuring out how do you get a double mortgage on your house to make payroll and keep the business going. But just to see the way that this loan program and the rapid response team was able to come in and get information that was necessary, provide a service, and help this company, this great company that employs a lot of people and takes care of children in several different parts of the state, get funding and survive, was very motivating for the team. The last story, which was just an incredible coincidence, a member of the team saw an email come through requesting assistance and recognized that was her salon. That's where she has been going for a salon for many, many years. And so she jumped in, was able to provide a service back to the salon that has been providing services to her for many years, and instantly had that personal connection. And again, was able to help explain these programs, help explain the documents and everything that's necessary, point the salon owner to a list of lenders where she could go and get some assistance, and then see that through. So now the loan is still pending, but now the business owners knows, the salon owner knows what to expect once the loan comes through, and can plan accordingly and stay in business as we move through this economy. So Derek, many stories. This is a very challenging time, but these stories are important because it reminds us that all of this is about helping individuals. And that's something that Derek on the task force has always encouraged us to be mindful of, that when we talk about the economy, we talk about businesses, but at the end of the day, it's about individual people in their lives. How can we help them get through this challenging time? And these federal programs and resources are proving to be very effective, even though they aren't without their challenges and their tweaks and glitches in the system. Like Scott mentioned, we're moving full steam ahead. We're scaling at an incredible pace here in Utah. And we do have the rapid response team in place to plug in and help anybody who's listening today. If you have any challenges, we're here to help. So Derek, that's my report. Back over to you.
Thank you, Miles. Thank you for those updates, and thank you for sharing those personal stories. That is a great way to remind us that the work we're about is all about people. You already answered probably the most important question, and that is, where can people access the rapid response team? And that is coronavirus.utah.gov at the business section. There was an additional question that came in, and I'd be curious if you know the answer to this. We know that the businesses, small businesses, less than 500 employees, are eligible for the PPP loans. And you already mentioned that independent contractors, 1099 employees, are eligible starting Friday. Mm-hmm. The question is, for the business owner that has a 1099 employee, should that small business owner count that individual on their PPP loan, or should they encourage that 1099 employee to get their own PPP loan?
Yep, great question. And the second you answered it there at the end of the question, encourage any 1099s that you're working with to go and apply for their own PPP loan. The 1099s are eligible for it to get it themselves. Therefore, you should not include that when calculating your payroll or your headcount as well if you're close to that 500 employee threshold.
Thank you for that answer. Despite all of the great relief resources that have been made available through the federal government, through the Congress and the White House, we also know that in many circumstances there is out of necessity a bridge that needs to happen between the time that those businesses can get those federal resources and yet stay open for business. Last week, we talked about a bridge loan program that's being administered out of the Governor's Office of Economic Development. This week, we want to let you know about a bridge program that's being offered specifically to rural businesses and minority-owned businesses. And to do that, we've invited Rob Behunin from R&R Partners to come tell us about it. Rob, thanks for joining us, and go ahead.
Hey, thanks a lot, Derek, and good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be with you, coming here from Wellsville, Utah, Cache Valley, and to bring this announcement to everybody. As Derek mentioned, a lot is going on for a lot of folks, and the Chamber has particular insight and desire to help rural Utah. I don't think there's anybody here that I can see on the screen, on my screen, that has not in some way touched a rural Utah in their career. So let me just read a little statement here. The Mainstreet Preservation Grant, which is provided by the Salt Lake Chamber's Utah Jobs Opportunity Foundation, is distributing funds to support Utah small, rural, and minority businesses that need immediate assistance related to COVID-19. These grant funds are intended, as Derek said, to help bridge businesses in the short term as they get up to speed with other funding that might come their ways. This is targeted to rural Utah, to the counties of the 4th, 5th, and 6th class. And some of you may not know what that is. I remember it this way. My grandmother was born in Duchesne County. That's a county of the 4th class. My grandfather was born in Embry County. That's a county of the 5th class. My dad was born in Wayne County, the county of the 6th class. So the Behunins kind of went up and down the class system, but rural Utah is great wherever you are in the rural world. These grant awards are not big pots of money like we've been talking about, but $5,000 can be awarded to a particular business. What can those funds be used for? Really along the same lines as the Paycheck Protection Program. And so how are people supposed to access these funds? The Chamber sent out, I think last week, Derek, a notification to all of the economic development directors and chamber directors in the counties of the 4th, 5th, and 6th class, and notifying them that these funds would be available and available very soon. So those groups went to work identifying businesses that potentially qualified, and we're nominating those businesses. And the last time I checked with your staff, Derek, there were about 23 applications that have already rolled in. My email's been burning. I've had 2 or 3 more folks say that they're applying. Those applications are due today at 5 o'clock. So the clock is ticking for those folks in the 4th, 5th, and 6th class counties, and 50 employees or less, if I didn't mention that. And hopefully we're going to get those reviewed very quickly today, tomorrow. And the goal is to have notifications out of awardees by tomorrow and funds dispersed the week of April 20th. That's the whole piece in a nutshell. If you're interested in that, in the counties of the 4th, 5th, and 6th class, get with your economic development director. Go see Caden Finnegan. Go see Adis Dorsey. Go see Rita Vigor. I can't remember all their names, but those are a few. Go check out with them and your chambers and understand what's going on here. This is amazing. The form isn't very difficult. Contact information, taxpayer ID number, county, of course, where you're located, number of employees, the use of funds, other grants you're getting, W-9, and the magic email number or email address is hwalker@lcchamber.com. That's our own Heidi Walker, who she and her team are really doing a great job with this. And so Derek, last thing I would say is a huge shout out to Workers' Compensation Fund, and who has donated. Their executive team, their board has allocated $500,000 to help make this possible. It's tremendous. $5,000 in these counties will go a long way. We've already heard from people. Miles gave us some stories. We've already heard from folks that say $5,000 will help my restaurant do this, will help my salon do this, do that, until I can get, until. So this is just Workers' Compensation Fund can't thank you enough. And I would, and I think on behalf of the Chamber, we'd like to challenge others who could step up and help match, put into, extend that rural Utah fund, where tourism and recreation are so important and has been so highly impacted. I'm not saying their impacts are any greater than anybody else. We're all feeling it in some way or another. But thank you again, Workers' Compensation Fund, Chamber staff, Derek, your folks. for reaching out and taking care of rural Utah in a significant way. I assume if there's funds, not all funds are awarded, that we'll maybe do a second round. If we get more donations and funds that come in, we'll do that as well. And so thank you, Salt Lake Chamber members and supporters, for watching out for our rural Utah friends. Appreciate that very much.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for coming on the town hall today to make this announcement. You're absolutely right. We'll continue to raise money for this Utah Jobs Foundation. And the more money we raise, the more money we can put out to these rural businesses and these minority-owned businesses. Rob, you've spent a lifetime working in and for rural Utah, so no one understands better than you do that $5,000 makes a big difference when you're talking about getting from this week to next week and waiting for that federal relief to come. And so we're grateful. I failed to mention that Rob is the chair of the Chamber's Chamber's Rural Workforce Network. The acronym is CROWN. I can never remember what all the letters stand for, but I think I got it right. Chamber Rural Workforce Network. So thank you, Rob Behunin.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate it very much.
We want to go now to Jacey Skinner, who is leading the Industry Outreach Working Group for the Economic Task Force, for an update on the work of that group. Jacey, are you with us?
I am, yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go right ahead.
Wonderful, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about this today. As Derek mentioned, I have been working with our Industry Outreach Response Group as part of the Governor's Economic Response Task Force. And when the governor created that task force, one of the very first things that he did was ask Derek to reach out to the various industries across the state and make sure that they were involved and engaged, given that this is a very, and has been a very fast moving and very dynamic health and economic crisis. And so that I've had the opportunity to work with that group from really the beginning of this. One of the very unique things about Utah, and I think we all know this, is our ability to work together and to collaborate. This particular group did not previously exist. It's a lot of folks that we've known from a distance, but as soon as we started to put out the word, industry association directors and others quickly volunteered and agreed to participate and to reach out to others to make sure that we were as inclusive as of many areas of our economy as we possibly could be. And since that time, this group has held a virtual meeting almost every day. Again, given the very dynamic moving, and many on this call, many who are on the participating in this task force today, or this town hall today, are part of that group. The response group involves everyone from our retail association, our medical association, our insurance providers, our agricultural industry, housing providers, bankers, credit unions, our arts community, our nonprofit organizations, our restaurants, our manufacturers, just to name a few. In fact, in all, the group includes approximately 80 different associations and businesses. We feel like we've gotten a really good cross-section of the Utah economy and community. This is remarkable and important because it means that from the very beginning of this health and economic crisis, we've had policy advisors from every sector of our community meeting regularly to share information, problem solve, make recommendations, and help serve as conduits of information back to their members, but then also to our state leaders. We've been able to create a really broad network to both, again, gather information and disseminate information quickly as things have changed really from day to day. The first thing the group did, and it seems like it was a year ago, it was really just a few weeks ago, but the first thing we did was figure out how businesses could operate under the Stay Home Safe directive from the governor. We were able to quickly put together guidance with help from the health department and apply that to different industries so that they could figure out and determine how they could comply with health guidelines and continue to operate. And we were able to do this in a way of coordinating with all sorts of businesses and industries. Working closely with the League of Cities and Towns, the Utah Association of Counties and Local Health Departments, law enforcement, and the Department of Workforce Services, we've been able to work through challenges that have arisen with unemployment issues, the various loans that have been available, stay home orders and directives. And as those have been different, we've been able to work through the differences between them. And we've been able to keep as many industries and partnerships and businesses working as possible. A few examples of things that we've been able to do by way of the PPP and the EIDL loans that we've talked so much about. As we knew those were going to become available, we were able to disseminate guidance and applications very quickly to a large group of individuals and to reach out to them very specifically. We were also able, again, with these daily calls with our Bankers Association, with our Credit Unions Association, with our Accountants Association, identify the issues that various applicants were going to be facing and were facing. And we were able to help get those challenges and troubleshoot those issues with our state leaders, with our lenders, with our federal delegation. In some instances, we were even able to, through the governor, get information quickly to the White House so that the changes and guidance could be provided to make these programs as applicable and as quickly available as possible. In many instances, we've been able to connect industries that have staffing needs with those industries or businesses who have employees who they want to keep and they want to keep engaged, but they aren't able to put to work right now. We've been able to form some really great partnerships in that regard. And we've also been able to help shift businesses and industries whose current products may not be as much in demand to that of providing some personal protective equipment and other medical needs that have been provided. We've also been able to make sure that we're providing support to our critical infrastructure chains and supply chains and make sure that those are operating smoothly and reach out to people across the state as challenges have arisen. We've also been able to put together some working groups for some very specific types of issues. For instance, yesterday we had a discussion and were able to put together a working group to talk about events. Not only large commercial events or private events, but community events. And given that those are one of the very first things that went away in light of these health issues, we also know they're going to be one of the most difficult things to bring back online, but they're also things that require a lot of stand-up time and a lot of planning. And so we were been able to put together a group to look specifically at these issues. And as we discussed it, we immediately had people volunteer, not only from commercial events and private events, but the Insurers Association and the small event planners, tourism individuals, and others who were all willing to immediately volunteer to help make sure that these things can happen, to plan, to put together timelines and transition plans so that we can recapture elements of our community in a safe and timely way as that becomes available. Overall, I just wanted to highlight this industry response group has been a fantastic example of Utahns with diverse interests really being willing to come together to adapt and innovate quickly to make sure that Utah can recover and continue to operate as well as possible. I will say we have tried to reach out to every sector of the economy that we can, but if you are aware of an industry that's not represented or that should be, or it needs to be, please let me know and we will make sure to extend an invitation to that group. We want to make sure that we are, again, as we're able to collect feedback, that we're able to do it from every sector of our economy. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Derek. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacey, and please thank all the members of your working group, those 80 plus industries that are represented and their organizations and the thousands of businesses that they represent for their efforts. I would just highlight as a final point in this segment that the 2.0 plan of Utah Leads Together that I referenced will contain a lot of work from these industry associations as to how they can comply with the health imperative and yet reactivate their segments of the economy. And it just illustrates, I think, a wonderful and true public-private partnership where it's not government saying what's going to happen to reopen the economy or the private sector pushing of what should happen, but really a working hand-in-hand partnership. Speaking of what industry is doing, we want to turn now to Tom Adams, who used to run on behalf of the state, the Utah Outdoor Recreation Office, now with Petzl, a great outdoor recreation company, and as well as Alex Adema, another great outdoor recreation company, DPS Skis. So Tom and Alex, thanks for joining us, and take it away.
Hey, Derek, thanks for the time. I appreciate you having us on today. Probably first and foremost, thanks to everybody here, Robert, Jacey, you, the governor, Scott. I know that you guys have been burning the candle at both ends from the legislative session until now. It hasn't slowed down, and I really appreciate it. I think this COVID situation might make the session seem like a vacation now in retrospect. For those of you that aren't aware of who or what Petzl is, it's spelled P-E-T-Z-L. It's not pretzel. I wouldn't talk about food this close to dinner. A lot of people confuse it. I think it's good for people to know what we do. We're a Utah-based company, or at least our North American roots are here in Utah. We've been here for 50 years. We're just celebrating our 50-year anniversary, and 20 of those years have been here in Utah. And what we do, some of it's right behind me, but most people know Petzl as a brand for our headlamps and our rock climbing and ice climbing and mountaineering equipment. But what makes it really great, our assortment in this situation, is most people don't know about the other side of our book of business, which is catering to that critical infrastructure sectors. And I know that's kind of a catchphrase these days, but that critical infrastructure sector is what's kept us running and kept us supplying products to cell phone services, so cellular communication, energy development, whether somebody's hanging off a wind turbine or a windmill or working in extraction with a headlamp, they'd have our product. And just last night, we had Salt Lake Search and Rescue doing a rescue at the mouth of Little Cottonwood Canyon. Bird flies in, helicopter, drops a long line, picks off a number of people off the side of a cliff. I guarantee you every search and rescue person in that group had something from Petzl. So we're really trying to help those services. But we're a global company. We have almost 1,000 people. We have manufacturing in Malaysia, manufacturing in France. Our headquarters is in Kroll, which is very close to Grenoble. But again, we've had roughly 75 people here in Utah for the last 20 years. Used to be based in Clearfield next to Lifetime Products, and moved down here to West Valley about 6 years ago. Have a wonderful facility. To give people some context, we have our sales operations, our marketing operations here, a very innovative DC as well, and then a training facility that houses training protocols and modules, from learning how to rock climb to our firefighters coming here and learning how to evac or egress out of a burning building. So we do a lot of stuff here in Salt Lake, and relatively a brand that a lot of people don't know what Petzl is. So in regards to COVID and being a global company, back in January, fortunately and unfortunately, we were watching our counterparts in Malaysia and France really be impacted by this. And it gave us the opportunity to really prep here in Utah and get ahead of the curve. So in January, we created what we call a Workplace Readiness for Public Health Crises document. And it really guided us through the beginning of March. So March 9th, we made the probably early decision at the time to send our whole office home. We said, we're going to take the social distancing seriously. Our building cannot function without our DC fully operational. So we sent 65 of our 75 employees all to work from home. And we were very lucky to be able to have the IT and the support crew to do that here. What it allowed us to do is truly protect our distribution center to stay working and stay open. So again, we have an enormous facility. We usually have about 9 people a day, so the social distancing is quite good. But as this started to grow in the state, and there was, I would say, a little bit more fear and a little bit more concern, I was brought to the attention of the Utah Leads Together document and this task force being created. So of course, Derek reached out to you and Jacey and said, hey, how can the outdoor industry help? And how can we be part of this solution? And what really came to be a win for us is within that Utah Leads Together document, in the urgent phase, which what we're in right now, there's 5 words that really mattered to us as an industry. And I think there's other brands out there that this will help, is, you know, in response to kind of those critical infrastructure sectors under the private sector, it says help alleviate supply chain shortages. And that's exactly what we do as a team here. Again, we're helping to provide communication, fall arrest to those people that are working on cell towers. If you're talking on a cell phone right now, I guarantee you're connected to some type of tower that somebody was working at height and probably had some Petzl equipment. Again, the extraction for energy, whether it's wind turbines, solar panels, or towers, and again, search and rescue and health professionals. And what makes it even more exciting is we're able to stay operational. Our team is really excited to help those sectors, especially the medical field. And a couple weeks ago, Alex Adema, a good friend of DPS Skis, reached out to me and said, "Hey, Tom, I think we can switch over our facility. What do you think about partnering to make medical face shields?" And I thought about it for a minute. I didn't know what we could do to help. I was like, oh, wait, we make some of the best headlamps in the world that have some of the most comfortable headlamps or headband straps. We can supply that. And, without further ado, I'll kick it over to Alex to talk more about it. But we're just thrilled to be a part of this other phase, showing Utah's collaboration and kind of the beehive mentality. So thanks, Derek, and I'll turn it over to Alex.
Alex, go right ahead.
Sorry, I was unmuting myself there. A quick background on DPS Skis. We're about a 15-year-old ski company that's been manufacturing skis here in Utah for the past 10 years. Our calling card is that we developed the world's most advanced skis. So we use some pretty unique technologies and have a pretty crack engineering team that helps us to pull off what we do with shaping and advanced materials that we use. As we get into this time of year, it was a unique one for sure, because the ski resorts, as we all know, started closing down early, which in turn affects the ski shops around the world. And even Europe was ahead of us on the curve by a few months, where we do a significant amount of business as well. So we really started wondering what next steps would be for us and how we might weather this storm along with everybody. And so we quickly turned to working through the young and fledgling but growing Utah Outdoor Association. And just looking to each other for ideas and how each of these other outdoor companies in the area that were kind of core to this ecosystem are responding. So at the same time, I was kind of watching what was happening in other places, and DPS certainly wouldn't take credit for it. Lots of people were doing some pretty remarkable things as far as converting their operations to produce medical PPE. We happen to have a Eastman cutting machine that is originally a textile machine, but that's what we used to cut our ski-based material from. And we just wondered, since it was a textile machine, maybe we could cut gown fabric or N95 fabric or whatever and pass them on to somebody else in the supply chain. And we sort of ran into roadblocks as far as figuring out where we'd get that material, which many others are running into, and then how we'd actually do the heat sealing or whatever other processes that we just couldn't do. And then one of our engineers sort of just had the idea, geez, we could make those protective medical face shields that everybody has. And so we placed it probably less than a 5% chance that we could actually make the conversion. But again, we've got some pretty sharp engineers and a pretty gritty, hardy entrepreneurial production team. And I might have been nagging for a week or two about it, but once they got a hold of it and sort of the kindling caught fire, they just ran right by me. So then our concern became, can we even afford to do this? Are we going to lose our shirts in the process? And for sure, out of the gate, we were prepared to lose a good amount of money, and that's where the outreach to the Utah Outdoor Association went out. And Tom and then Bill Harmon from Goal Zero were among the two quickest to respond and just say, let us know what we can do. And of course, Tom came back with the idea of head straps, and we've been on early morning texts trying to figure out how to get those things here from France and Malaysia and otherwise. So there are other brands that have stepped in to help, other smaller kind of contributions that have been made. Alpha Coffee is actually bringing their battle wagon food truck down to just kind of thank the guys for what they're doing. So it's just a really fun project to be a part of. We wish the need would go away tomorrow, to be certain, but at the same time, it's although exhausting, it's been really exhilarating for us to just see the community pull together, particularly this outdoor ecosystem that's so vital to this region, and that we just take a lot of pride in. So the morale couldn't be higher given the circumstances with our team, in a situation where, frankly, we were looking at, how do we handle tough conversations around layoffs and just anxiety over people coming in? Should we even build skis? If we furlough right now, would that be the end of us? Would we be able to turn it back on depending on how long this goes? So it's allowed us to feel like we're doing a small part for our community, to really have a cool partnership with other brands in the region, to keep a few people employed, and again, kind of shift the emotion internally from an angst and real level of concern to just a camaraderie and unity to fight and be a part of this whole effort. So it's been a really exciting experience, and we're deeply grateful to Petzl to Goal Zero in particular, other organizations like Utah Outdoor Association, Utah Manufacturers Association, Impact Utah, the Task Force, EDC Utah. It's really been a community effort to pull this together and help us figure out how to plug into the supply chain. So I'm not sure if I can answer any other specific questions, Derek, but we're just honored to be a part of it. And I'm thankful to be here, not so much so that we can toot our own horn, but so that we can just kind of give a shout out to those partners that have supported us and our team who's just really grinded it out and to do something pretty remarkable. So thank you for allowing us to share our story.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Tom, for coming on and sharing that story. We hear a lot about what different businesses are doing to adapt and innovate, and you certainly have taken it to a whole new level with regards to not just adapting for what you're already producing, but actually shifting the whole production line and starting to produce something that's needful. And I agree with you. We're looking forward to the day where we won't need those face shields anymore and we can just go back to skiing. That'll be a great day.
Absolutely.
I want to give the rest of the time to my colleague from the Box Elder Chamber, Monica Holdaway, who's here to introduce us to one of the great Box Elder companies and a household name brand that you will all be familiar with. Monica, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm excited to be able to introduce our chamber member today. And obviously up here in Box Elder County, we have one of our largest industries is manufacturing and production. And so today it's my pleasure to introduce Tommy Montoya, who is the human resources leader at the Box Elder Procter & Gamble site. We are excited to have him explain the ways that P&G has adapted and innovated through this crisis and kept production going. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Tommy.
Thank you, Monica, and thanks everyone. I wanted to share just a few things that we're going through here at the site as we respond to the COVID situation. And a couple things that are important to us are keeping our employees safe so that we can continue to provide the products that we make. And at this site, we make Charmin, Bounty, Pampers, and Loves. Our responses have been in line with the CDC guidelines, which include pre-screen, pre-site access screening, and regular monitoring. And I'm not sure if the chamber can allow me to share my screen. I actually had some photos I wanted to share. Derek, is that possible?
Let me see if I can make that work, Tommy.
If not, that's fine. I can just talk through them. But I had some photos of some of the things that we've implemented here at the site to help enact the CDC guidelines.
Keep going, and we'll see. If
perfect. It's letting me go. It's letting me go.
Go ahead.
All right, perfect. So with that, I will at least zoom in on this a little bit here. So some of the things that we're working on are how do we effectively go through pre-screening and regular monitoring? And this is what you would find when you enter any of our doors here at the site, is a verification checklist that's going to remind you as you enter this site, these are the things that you must verify. And if not, it'll get you in contact with our nurse. And one of the things we've realized is being an employer of an essential product, we have to help employees feel safe not coming to work when they are sick. And so we've done a lot of work with our employees, helping them recognize the benefits and things that we're willing to provide to keep them safe and to help them feel comfortable at home. One of the other big things we've been working on and that we recently introduced is masks. And masks for the operation is really a challenge, right? When you're not used to wearing it, it can be very uncomfortable. And so we've done a few things to try to help with that. One is we've actually allowed employees to apply essential oils just to the outside of the mask, right here, kind of where I'm pointing. And it actually is greatly helpful in making the experience a lot more pleasurable and not having to smell your own breath all day. We've also worked with some 3D printers that we have on site to create little clips just from designs that you can get online that can help to hold the mask in more comfortable ways. We have done a significant piece of work around enabling social distancing throughout our site, whether that's different entrances, creating zones within the plant and creating sanitizing areas between zones, as well as marking. In the bottom picture here, you can see we've got like individual chair markings on the floors now to indicate where each chair can be. We've upped our disinfection and cleaning. So again, we've created zones and we've put individual hand sanitizing stations between zones so that people can sanitize properly as they go through. We've also introduced pre and post shift checklists. And then we put in place a contract tracing and response process, which when, if we have an employee or an employee's immediate family member who does who does test positive or is being tested for COVID, we created a response, for that, and involved our emergency response team to help us, do the deep decontamination and sanitization of the area. And then we are currently moving to a what if, right? Like, what if this lasts longer than 2-3 months, right? What we've done is worked well over the short term. How do we move this to the long term? So this is an example on the screen of our current temperature scanning process before you come on site, going from handheld thermometers to a digital scanner that's a little bit easier. And overall, our big thing is we want to involve our employees, keep them feeling safe, keep them safe, and get them engaged. And we've created opportunities and ways for them to engage directly with us and the plant leadership team to raise those ideas, concerns, and to get them actively working in our sanitization. And it's important to us that we're able to do that, to keep these products going out the door. And that's all I wanted to share.
Very detailed information, Tommy. Not surprising coming from a terrific company with a terrific history. We're grateful to have Procter & Gamble in Utah. I think it was the first North American greenfield plant in 50 years built right in Box Elder County. Thanks to you and thanks to your team. And keep that toilet paper coming.
All right, absolutely.
Thanks to everyone who's joined the task force to the town hall today. Just a final reminder as a teaser, on Thursday, we'll be previewing the Utah Leads Together Plan 2.0, a plan that contemplates important elements of reactivating segments of our economy. We look forward to having you join us then. Thanks.